Wow. I feel a little bit speechless. I just want to take it in for a minute.
Can we do a 2-hour interview?
Can we just go back into meditation so we can thank the land for giving us Paula? I'm hoping to inspire parents to teach the kids that, what I teach them. And I'm hoping there's just this ripple effect because, what gardening is it's lessons learned from generation to generation. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here with the master gardener, Paula Wolfel, and the fabulous Megan. And this is episode 17?
Episode 17 and our first outdoor interview. And you guys, I can't even tell you, we were just talking about this piece of this amazing, so sacred
space.
And you can feel all the love that Paula's put into this space.
Yes. We're going to add some little pictures in, but if you can see this whole entire wall, all the way down, the entire end is a garden, and there's beautiful flowers and herbs and vegetables and amazing things growing here. All the things growing here. Life. Lots of life. All the other things hiding. Hopefully none of the creepy things come out, or we will have a great blooper reel. Paula, thank you so much for welcoming us into your garden and home and offering this beautiful tea in these ancient grandma's tea mugs. And thank you so much.
Of course, thank you for having me.
She gave us these beautiful baskets. I can't wait to show these off later too, so you all can see what you get with a subscription. I mean, I had no idea. Just amazing. So
thank you. Thank you for being here.
Will you share with us, just a little bit about what you do?
Okay. I have a company called Grit and Grace Gardening. It's kind of, I always say it's got two arms. One is vegetable garden consulting. And the second would be if you're not into vegetable gardening or you don't have the time or space to pursue that, it's more of an awareness of what to do with vegetables and fruits that grow in Texas. So it's cooking lessons, basically, where I come to your home or you come to my home with your group of friends, and I teach you how to just use local and seasonal fruits, vegetables, and herbs for healthier eating habits. Ultimately, what I do is try to share my knowledge and passion for gardening with people who are either too afraid to do it or have misconceptions about how much time or energy
maybe they just need to be re-inspired.
Yes. And Texas is a really hard place to garden, to be fair. I was born and raised in the Chicago suburbs, and that's where I learned how to garden. And then I lived in outside Washington, D.C. and Virginia for about 20 years, and then moved here. And I came here ignorant, thinking, oh, it's warm all year. This is gonna be amazing. And I think when I talk to a lot of my clients that come from the West Coast, but from Seattle all the way down to San Diego, they, I think, also come here thinking oh, it's a similar climate. But it's a rough place to garden. All of that to say, once you just figure out what the special ingredients are, it's just like anywhere else. But it takes a little time and kind of reframing your mind to get in the space of what is required to grow successfully in the hill country.
So cool. And you also do, did you mention the subscription for people too?
Yeah, so what I do is if you are interested in having a vegetable garden, I could do one of many things, and then I kind of tailor it to you and your family's needs. But the basic starting packages would be, you start out by contacting me, and I come in about roughly an hour. I walk your land, and I have an informal interview with you with what you eat, what your family eats, what your goals are for having a garden. I take a look at your soil and your sunlight. Some clients have moved into a house where there's already garden beds and they don't know how to start, and some have just always wanted it. And so that's where the tailoring comes in. Sometimes you have everything it needs already, and sometimes you have everything you think you need, but you did it all wrong, so I have to like retweak it. And then the third is like it's just an open canvas. And so that's where we start, and it takes roughly an hour. Some people just go on and they're like, okay, now I know where to build my garden, and I have the basics. The second would be then we agree on a plan and what you want to grow. And then I come back to the space on a designated, morning or afternoon, and it takes roughly 2 to 3 hours. And again, it depends on how much, if it's one bed or if it's like 12 beds. But and then I offer, and to date, everyone has taken me up on family classes if that fits your your scenario. Because what I see and hear is the same story over and over again. Is I remember my gardening with my grandma. I remember my dad in this amazing garden, or I remember so and so would bring me out, and there's a yearning and a craving with a lot of parents to give that same experience to their children. And so I have it's been really fun to see all the different stories. The one that I just completed was actually for dad, which I thought was awesome because that is who taught me how to garden, and where I was originally inspired was my dad. And unfortunately, stereotypically, it's usually like the mom, right? But
your dad was Sicilian.
Yeah, my dad was Sicilian.
So that makes sense.
And everyone in Sicily eats from the earth. So, but anyways, he brought his son out into the garden. It was so sweet. It ended up being, the son was asking a lot of questions, which was amazing. So it ended up being, I came back the next day because there were so many questions, and, it just slowed things down. But it was amazing. It's just so fun to work with the families, and then to know that you're gifting them this experience that then they could go on and, hopefully grow and learn
Make
from
those
it.
memories.
Yeah. So that would be the second package. I come back and I actually build the garden. And if it fits into your time and schedule, then, you're there learning from me, and I'm showing you all my tips and tricks. And then the third option is there's, a population that just doesn't have the time. And that's totally okay. Like, it's not for everyone, right? Like, and so there's a population that would love the idea of having a beautiful space or access to fresh foods, but has no interest in doing the gardening. They don't want to be outside. They don't want the heat. They don't want the cold, or they have a busy schedule, right? And so in that situation, I have a monthly subscription, and again, it starts at $300 a month. But there's some people who've hired me that it's basically like a farm, like I'm going to their farm or their orchard. And so, we tweak things based on what you need. But that would be me coming twice a week to check on the garden and make sure everything's going well. And in some cases, that's literally just dropping in. In some cases, that's an hour of work. And then with that, I gift you a basket. They are
so amazing.
Yeah, they're made
so
in
good.
Uganda. A man facilitates the transfer of the baskets. They're made by moms with AIDS in Uganda, and so I gift you a basket, and similar to this, when you come home at your back door, the basket with all your harvest would be waiting for you. So you still have the benefits of fresh fruit, veggies, herbs, but you don't have to get your hands dirty.
I love that.
And I love getting my hands dirty, so that it works out well for me.
When in your adult life did you decide, I'm going to start a business and actually take this passion and do it for a living? I love that.
Sure. So, both my grandmothers and my father, we always gardened together. And in my mind, it was like the largest space ever. But I'm sure if I went back, the garden would have been like, a postage stamp. But your childhood memories. And so I always, our family is Sicilian. There was always home cooked meals. Everything, when possible, came from the ground in our own backyard with both my grandmothers and my father. And so, and it's not that my mom wasn't. My mom was always cooking. It's just what my dad wanted to do. And so fast forward, then I go off to college, and post college, every apartment I ever had, I tried to have a balcony or a east or west facing window to get some sunlight in, just because I always wanted to grow something. And so, even on balconies, and I say this as a plug that you don't need space. Like, you could grow anything just in a pot on your kitchen counter, and then everything from there. And so I always planted and gardened, but I had a totally different career that was very service focused. And so I realized very quickly that my passion was service, serving others, serving the country. And then this was almost like a passion project, right? Like, this is what I would come home and be stressed with. And, then we have kids, and I resigned from my old job. And as they've gotten older, I've just taken from my childhood that I wanted to be the same parent that my parents were, and show them where food comes from. And, there's a certain pride that comes from cooking a meal for your children when everything is from your garden, and the children helped you plant those and raise those plants up and whatnot. And there's also a humility that comes when you come out in the morning and some bug ate your whole crop, or a frost, killed your olive tree, or whatever it may be. And so there's this balance that I think is so important to show kids also, that not to take things for granted, and things require a lot of grit and grace. But with that said, during COVID, which I think changed a lot of people's lives, we were very blessed in the space that we were with, because we had a lot of outdoor space to escape to. And my son had these health issues early on in life, and we didn't know how that was going to manifest itself with COVID. And so I was a stay-at-home mom, and I made the decision to homeschool. So we completely withdrew them, and I found curriculums that worked for us. And most of what we did was outside. And I started realizing how much gardening plays into so many different classes. I mean, obviously it's science, but there's so many other lessons that come from it. So hold that thought for a second. So I was, homeschooling and gardening and whatnot. Simultaneous, our neighbor in our last house, our neighbor had a beautiful garden. We had just moved to Texas, didn't know much about what grows in Texas yet. And she would not vent, but when we were talking about how busy we are or whatnot, she was always telling me, "Oh, I'm in this Master Gardener program. Oh, Master Gardener, Master Gardener." I was like, "What is this?" And so she explained the program, which is a countrywide volunteer program. In Texas, we go through Texas A&M, and we get access to just the best agricultural minds that our state has to offer. And then you, in return, every year you have to give 20 hours of volunteer work for county approved programs. And I was like, I love that. Like, when the kids get older, I'm going to do it, because I get to do the service work. I get to volunteer and give back, but then I'm being challenged, and then I also get to play with gardening, and yada, yada, yada. So once the kids got old enough, it was a year after COVID, I got accepted and then became a master gardener. And once people started hearing that tagline on me, I started getting, friends started recommending me to different people and whatnot. So I was still doing the 20 hours. Well, the first year you have to do 50 hours, but since then I'm doing 20 hours, largely with vegetable trials, which is really cool, because I love the academic rigor in that, but also building community gardens, which I think is really cool, because it's accessing populations that I wouldn't if I was just here in my little bubble. And just learning why people want to garden, what their struggles are with gardening, and so there's so much learning and exchange of information in both those venues. But one of the things that happened was a friend introduced me to a friend who started this private school down in Dripping called Lay's Academy. And in a volunteer capacity, she hired me to create a curriculum for gardening class as well as then come in once to twice a week and teach gardening. And I realized how much I loved, I already had the homeschooling, which is teaching, but it's your own kids. And then I was with these other children. I'm like, gosh, I love teaching. I love sharing this information. And, not to boast or pat myself on the back, but like at some point you have to realize, okay, you know more than a lot of the other people. Like you have something to give back, right? Yeah. And so anyways, I had been applying the last couple of years. I was trying to get back into the workforce now that all three of my children are in full-time school. And I was trying to go back into my old world, and I was not getting anything. And that's okay, because when you resign and decide to be a stay-at-home mom, you know that that's the risk you're running, right? And there's a lot of other women out there that want to be a stay-at-home mom and aren't, and have been working all these years, right? So I completely understand where my place is. So I wasn't getting any traction with getting a job, and I was applying all over the place. And what was filling up my time was helping everyone with their gardens, and then on the flip side, I love entertaining. So I would have these like meals, and friends would come over and be like, wait, you cooked all this from your garden? Like, tell me, what did you do? And I was like teaching people how to cook. Yeah. And so I'm like, it was last spring where I told my husband, I'm like, Joe, all of my time is going towards helping friends and now their friends. And like, at some point, it's like the friends of the friends of the friends who are contacting me. It's no longer like, sure, I'll come over after school and like see what's going on in your garden. Now it's like coordinating babysitters and stuff, so I could go and help people that I don't know, like build their garden. And so I'm like, I think there's something here. And so I put together the teaching aspect, which I love, the cooking and gardening aspect, which I love, and the building community and networking and whatnot. And it's kind of just, no pun intended, but blossom naturally.
It's like a perfect example of what so many teachers try to teach. Like I try to share this with my kids or with clients about manifesting. When you can come to a place where you're in a state of bliss, like we did our meditation about coming to our hearts even before this interview. When you're in that place where it's a pure feeling of joy in your heart and you trust, that's when all the magic happens. Yeah. And it's like, I think, a challenge for us as humans to get our brains out of the way. Like, but we need to make money. I need to keep applying for these jobs, and then you just naturally ended up back in that. And now how it blossomed, perfect pun intended, into this amazing career that you're doing something that you really love. And it's just amazing. Yeah. I love this. Thank you.
I have a question, because I really think this is going to blossom really big. We're just gonna go. It's
gonna be a big blossom.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big blossom. So, have you ever thought about that? Like how you're gonna grow and expand with it? Because there's just one Paula. One amazing Paula.
I think Megan's trying to like get
Do
herself
you
a
want
different
a
job.
job?
Yeah. No. But or are you just like taking it each day? Because that's fine as well.
Yeah.
I'm
taking it each day because I don't like to stress.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I should be thinking it of a different way. A couple of weeks ago, I was leaving my house in the morning, and I was like, okay, I have so much to do today. I had 3 different clients to go to that day at 3 different gardens, and I was like running through all of mine. I like felt the stress, and I stopped and I'm like, all you have to do today is garden. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? But I don't know. Like, I have all these ideas in my mind of where I would like this to go. I just got approved by Lake Travis ISD to do an enrichment after school program.
Stop.
So like I want to always be in, and so I run our school garden. And so that was another thing. I'm like, okay, I'm already in the school garden. I know this land so well. I know how kids respond. I know what kids are asking. I know what kids like. And a couple times a week, teachers will ask me to teach the class in the garden. So like, I go in and they'll just give me a vague lesson plan of where they are, like, and sometimes it's very natural, but like on Tuesday, they're like, we're learning about energy. And I was like, okay, fourth grade energy. I'm like, I mean, I know photosynthesis, but what the heck is kinetic energy and physical energy in the garden? And I started researching. I'm like, oh, wow, like,
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's, so, that is one thing that's coming out of this. And so I do want to keep the education aspect, but I think, if it grows to a point where something's got to give, then I do think, and I've always been a believer that so much has to happen and start in the house. And so let's just say it gets to the point, at some point, I'm hoping to inspire parents to teach the kids that, what I teach them. And I'm hoping there's just this ripple effect because what gardening is it's lessons learned from generation to generation, right? Like, I didn't just plant these things and they grow. We've gotten to the point where we know what works, what doesn't, this variant and that seed, and how to store this and all the things, because it's lessons learned, right? I learned how to garden from my grandparents. A lot of people of that generation literally came from the old world, from Europe, with seeds. Like, that's all they brought were seeds with them, right? And so there's things in my garden that are exactly like that. Like, I go to distributors in Sicily and I grow the food that I know my parents like, and I bring it home. But but that's what family and tradition and generations, and not to get so dramatic and like think too deeply into all this, but
we like dramatic.
We
indeed.
love
drama.
And
Okay,
we
so
think
much of
you
that
should
has
boast away.
Well, so
So,
much of that has been lost, right? And so, if the central theme that I'm hearing when I'm with a client is, I want to give what my grandma gave me, or I remember gardening with my mom, but I never listened, or, when I garden, I truly feel that my two grandmas are with me, and I feel like all the lessons, and whatnot.
Another tearful moment.
But I have 5 siblings, right? That's a big family.
Wow.
All of us are really good cooks, and all but one garden. And I think he would garden if he just had the time and space, but it's not that he's anti-gardening. And so even with my own siblings, we're texting, oh, look at what happened here, and look at like this plant, and look at this, and and like we're exchanging recipes and whatnot. And then you take that a step out, like my Travis County Master Gardener group. There's constant emails like, okay, what's going on? Did you get spinach this year? Mine is like, whatever. Just last Saturday, I went to a friend. She's like, here, take my, bunching onions, and I have a lot of mulberries, so take this mulberry. And she literally like sent me home with a mulberry tree to like transplant.
Wow.
And so it's like a really cool,
Community.
And so I guess getting back to your question, I don't know where it's going to grow, but I do trust that when it's time, things will grow organically. Like, in the current stage, I don't have the capacity to build beds. Like, so that's one of my limits. Like, I come to your house and it's just an empty space. Well, we need to grow them in bed. You need to grow your vegetables in beds. So like the best I could do is, these are the vendors I recommend. This is how big I recommend. These are the materials I recommend. Go forth. But I would love to have, some sort of carpenter access to that, and then and apply that. I do think there is space eventually, but I don't know what that looks like, and how.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever turn anyone down, but
It seems like the leverage will appear when the time is right, like, because everything else has fallen into place just as it's supposed to.
yeah, hopefully.
It will.
It will.
Yeah. So what brought you to Austin?
So, born and raised outside Chicago. I left Chicago for college when I was 18. Went to school in Washington, D.C. My husband and I met in high school, but we didn't date. He went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. So we were both in that area. Once he got into the Navy, he was in Virginia Beach. So we were in that area for many years. Once we got married and started having kids, we knew we had outgrown DC. We love DC. There's so many great things about DC, but it wasn't for us anymore. And so we had been already looking to get out of Washington. We were in a very small house, no yard at all. He built me like a bed that sometimes got light and sometimes didn't. And a lot of competing forces going on, but ultimately his business partner at the time lived in Austin, and it made sense for us to be co-located with how his business was growing, my husband's business. And so Austin was one of the places on the table. It made the most sense for what we needed, at that point in time, financially, for his business, with the kids, etc. Leaving Washington, D.C. urban, I was like, okay, if we're doing Texas, then we're doing Texas. So I want land, I want big. So that's why we ended up in Austin, and that's why we ended up on the outskirts of Austin.
Okay.
Yeah, you get the land and the bigger houses out here, for sure.
Right. Yeah. And so, we have grand plans for, I would love to do a kids camp next summer here, teaching kids how to garden.
Yeah, fun.
Summer camp,
Yeah.
So for somebody who is thinking of starting a garden and they're intimidated, but especially there's so many preppers out there too who are like, we need to grow our own food.
Yeah. So many YouTube videos.
Yeah. What are some, like, a few tips that you could give for starting your own garden?
Well, especially where we are in the country, soil. Like, soil is everything. West of the river in Austin, I know we call it a lake, but everything west of the body of water that flows through Austin, we are on limestone. And I could put my finger 3 inches down and it's rock, right? So
yeah, it makes putting our open house lines up
Yes.
really difficult.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Very
why you see us out there with the drill.
You're
an auger bit.
quite aware. And so the number one thing I think that I've learned is soil. Like, get your soil right, and do a little research and reach out to someone that it knows. Like, if you don't want to hire me or someone in my space, like, because what ends up happening is you are spending so much time and money then to backtrack once you get the soil wrong.
So who do you suggest someone go to for soil?
So I love, Natural Gardener has some really good soil options.
Yes.
And then, oh goodness, I should have known this, that you're going to ask. There is
it Gardenville?
No, it's out on 290. That's where I got my soil. They only do bulk. They hands down are the best soil in this area. So soil. And so you could totally nerd out then. Like, you could do a soil test. If you already have a bed, just send it into Texas A&M for $12. And within a few weeks, they will send a report back to you of what needs to be added to get your soil to the point where it should be growing vegetables.
Wow.
For $12, plus shipping. But I think soil is the key. And then, once you start with good soil, the rest is tweaking it, like making sure you have water and sunlight and the other thing I would say is we spend so much money in this country on herbs. Like, if I was to go buy, basil or thyme or rosemary, it comes from nowhere around here. It comes in a plastic case, and it's about $2.50 to $3.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then it goes bad.
Yeah, it goes bad. And most likely you only need like a teaspoon for that recipe.
Yeah.
If you don't know anything else, like,
Herbs.
Start with herbs.
Yeah.
You can eat them as soon as you plant them. Like, that's the beauty of everything in the winter garden, but all herbs, like, it's ready to eat. You don't need a fruit to form, right? And you're saving on money, on plastic, on shipping, like all these other things.
Okay, so we're in November. So if someone was like, you know what, I'm super inspired, I'm gonna plant something this weekend, what would you tell them to plant?
She's like, I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This girl I know really wants to plant something this weekend. So,
my kitchen counter's done.
There's
gonna be
I just have to say, like, you might see a smile on my face a lot because I can feel the energy buzzing off of Megan.
So what advice?
If
So
Megan could
basically, you're
flap her
asking me for
arms.
that hour of. This is what this is. It's the hour of consultation.
Yes.
So if my yard has a tree here and the kitchen's here, where would I plant
I
it?
actually brought a sample of my no.
Here's some soil from my
Yeah,
yard.
she's levitating if you can't tell.
So we are at the end, like you will still, especially because it's going to be warm this coming week, we are technically at the end of like getting the brassica family. So broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, collards, all of those leafy winter vegetables. Those should have got in earlier, but you could still try that, especially because we have some mild weather coming up. But we are still in everything that roots. So like carrots, onions, garlic, shallots, not potatoes yet, beets, radish. Beets, do you like beets?
I have a love-hate relationship
I
with
love when
growing
people
beets.
are like, I grow watermelon.
Yeah.
So there's still, you can still, in all the greens, lettuces, arugula.
I love arugula.
I plant according to the lunar calendar. And so between full moon and new moon, so the day after a full moon, the day before the new moon, is when you want to plant anything that grows underground, carrots, beets, radishes, and basically gravity and the water and soil is pulling plants down.
Beautiful.
Everything that grows
Is that
up.
I'm sorry.
They don't teach that in Master Gardener. That's just something that
They don't teach that at Texas A&M?
Did Grandpa
I don't
teach
know
you
if they
that?
do. I didn't learn
Did your
that.
dad teach you that?
No, actually, but this other old man who that's the cool thing about gardening. It's like everyone does it. Every culture, every walk of life, every socioeconomic, which many hobbies, like everyone loves music or everyone loves art. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like gardening is so unique in that aspect, but you come across people, and with Master Gardeners, we do a lot of outreach with the community. And so one of the ways we do it is we set up a table at farmers markets, and people just come up and just kind of like chat with us. And
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. So anyways, this man told me that, and it's something you hear or like read about throughout maybe some people do, I have, throughout your life, but then it once you have all the background knowledge, you're like, well, that makes sense.
It does make sense.
There's a reason the moon's in the sky. Like there's a reason.
Well, the gravitational pull. It's like, wow, huh. That makes a lot of
Same
sense.
concept as tides. So if you were to go home this weekend, I recommend doing root vegetables.
Okay.
What are you hoping that people will feel from working with you? Like, what are you hoping that they'll get from that? And it kind of wraps up into like, what is your why?
Sure. So I guess I think there's three aspects. Organic practices. You bring healthy food into the kitchen, and even if you can't garden, then like a better understanding of where your food is coming from, what the health benefits are. Like there's a reason why these vegetables grow this time of year. It's what our bodies need as we're going into the winter. Things like that. So I think one is like we need to start teaching from a young age better eating habits, healthy eating habits. The second is we need to start taking care of this world. And there's so many cool things that are happening, like regenerative soil is a big buzzword right now.
What is regenerative soil?
So, and there's a really good documentary that was just a few weeks ago. I went and saw it. Years ago, I read this study that said, if you look at spinach in the 1950s and you look at spinach today, it was like a 60% decrease in nutritional value. And it's because we've ripped up all the nutrients from our soil. Fast forward, a lot of the literature you read now is saying if you do not eat organic or locally grown, by the time these healthy vegetables get to your fridge, they've basically lost the value, right? And so one of the things that going back to regenerative soil is, you have to, when you put your fingers in my soil, you will see so much life. You will see worms, you will see pill bugs, you'll see even the bad bugs, but bad bugs are here because it's an amazing place to live, right? And each plant is stripping out different nutrients from the soil, right? Like some are taking out a lot of nitrogen, some are taking out a lot of calcium. And so what farmers are starting to realize, if you're going to keep growing that same crop year after year after year, and you're not putting in compost and manure and worm castings and all the things that are supposed to be happening in the soil, that soil is just dead, right? And so, but that's not good for big business, right? So big farms, if I'm not growing my soybeans every year, and so the farmers that have caught on are growing something else that year, like clover or ryegrass, or to replenish the soil with the nutrients. And so every plant is either putting something in or taking something out, and that's why you have companion planting, right? Like that's why onions grow really well with brassicas, and spinach grows well with strawberries because they're complementing each other. And so that would be that would tie in with the second is nature. Like there's a lot we're only here for, God willing, 100 years. Like these trees and these plants and these seeds, they know how to survive. They don't need us. Like my broccoli plant doesn't need me to survive. Its whole objective is go seed and produce a seed. My job is to enjoy it and then just basically provide an environment, be on the offensive kind of, make sure the bugs aren't coming, make sure I provide it with good soil, et cetera, et cetera. And so nature, there's a lot of answers in nature, and if we keep destroying nature, we're destroying our bodies, we're destroying the earth. And that goes into the third is time outside. And that's what I realized during COVID with homeschooling. Like, and there's so many teachers that get it, and so those are the teachers that are pinging me, like, I want to be in the garden, let me get in the garden, let me get in the garden. And that's not me, like, it's not because they want to be by me or my lesson, it's because they realize that like 20 minutes of recess a day, and so there's benefits. Like I saw a child this is a couple months ago, early school year, she was having, as a fifth grader, complete meltdown in the parking lot. And I just was looking at her being like, what are we doing to our children? Like she just did not want to go into school. And her mother walked by to try to go get the school counselor, and I stopped the mom and I'm like, I don't want to interfere, but if you want, your daughter's more than welcome to come sit in the garden for a few minutes before she goes into school. And that was what they did. And I just sat there and like pretend I wasn't watching her, right? I was like doing my job, but I kept looking over, and it's just like playing with the dirt and handling a plant and the sounds and the wind and the smells, like it was so healing to her. And it grounds us, it calms us. You get out of your own mind because you're sitting there with a living thing, right? Why is this bug on it, or why is it dying, or why is the leaf yellow, or and you're so focused on that you're not worried about like all the things that we fill our day, all those ice cubes.
Yeah,
the ice
exactly.
cubes that are falling
Fully
into
in
our,
the present moment.
yeah. And then topple that with like the stories that you're connecting with generations past. I think that's my three.
Amazing.
If I could get one of those messages across. And this woman, she's a mother at the school, and I kind of, send a broadcast out like, if you want to volunteer in the garden, come Monday mornings. And so this woman started volunteering, and about a month in, she pulled me aside. She's like, I just moved here from Mexico City in August, and I just thought, okay, I want to volunteer at the school. I'll do this garden. She's like, I had never touched a plant. I had never been in a garden. And she said, there's something amazing happening here. And she goes, it's just working with plants and dirt. Like, I'm addicted. Like, I want to come back every day. I want to come back. And it's every time there's a class that comes in the garden, I send a note to all the volunteers, if you want to come. And she comes every time. And she's just, like, and it's not me. It's this.
But you are the facilitator. You're the vessel. And that's what like, this is my passion. Like, this has nothing to do with real estate. This is just, I love connecting people, and the fact that no one would think, I'm going to support a master gardener because they're uplifting humanity through their work. But like, you are actually out there uplifting humanity through your work, following your heart and following your passion and what you believe in, and you're making a huge difference in all of these lives. And then, like you said, it's a domino effect to how that ripples out to so many other people. Like, I feel transformed today just sitting here with this. Like, when you got up and talked at Social Collective, I was like, I was so excited, and I was so excited for Megan. Like I was channeling my inner Megan because she loves
texted me,
gardening.
and then I got excited.
I was like, I can't wait. I texted her like on the spot. I'm sending her your information while you were still talking, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
I was
appreciate
so excited.
That. It's, there was a study I read a few weeks ago. I think it was Department of Forestry, right? And it was after all those forest fires and everything we had this summer. And it said something along the lines of like, something really soon, like 20 years from now. I'm going to have to go find that study so I could get the numbers right. But ultimately, what it was saying is the amount of forest fires we're having is actually, trees are being more of a detriment to they're putting more carbon in than taking carbon out. And the study was like, these pocket prairies, we have to restore the prairie lands. But I think the revolution has to happen at the small scale. Like, you have, like if my parents taught me how to eat healthy, right? And then people come into my kitchen and they're like, how do you eat like this? And then I go to a school, and so I'm not saying all me, but like, that's where I think we need to be as a society, is like the environment and our health is suffering. No matter what side you're in, this isn't like a political talk. I think it's fair to say after this past summer with the floods and the forest fires and all these things, we're in a state right now where something has to give. And so I'm hoping by just planting a garden in someone's yard, it gets minds like working in a different way and helping to get either people to eat healthier or save the environment.
That's
Just
awesome.
not a big deal, just that small little task.
Just a little task, but it's that one person at a time.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think it's for such a time as this, like after the pandemic, mental health has never been more relevant. I mean, it has, but now it's at the forefront, and now we're kind of faced with having to deal with mental health. And just like you said, like nature it's here, it's beautiful, it's abundant, and it's free. And now we have to, not take advantage of it, but get back to our roots.
Yeah. And there's ways to do it. There's so many community gardens. Every Saturday morning, I teach a class in a community garden in East Austin. There was someone told me right in a neighborhood right off Southwest Parkway, just a group of houses. They have a community garden. So even if you don't want it in your yard, there's ways to do it where you don't have to like, okay, I got to go make beds or invest in the plants and redo my irrigation and whatnot. Like, there's a lot of different venues, and again, even if it's just more of an awareness of how to eat local and seasonally, right?
Yeah, I love that. Well, this has been absolutely inspiring.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this abundance here, guys. Purple basil. I'm so excited. I want to make it live.
You haven't had a meal yet.
I
I'm gonna
haven't-
make them. I made them lunch,
I'm really
and
excited.
everything that we're eating is from the garden. So,
Purple's my favorite color.
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like a little bit obsessed. Actually,
It's beautiful.
Green's my favorite.
green's her
Our
favorite.
favorite color from the garden.
Our next Coffee and Connections is going to be December 1st because we're going to bypass Thanksgiving stuff and then probably not do the end of December because all the craziness with the holidays. So you will be our last Coffee and Connections of the year, December 1st.
Mark your calendars.
Mark your calendar. It'll be at 10 a.m. and please message us if you're interested in an invite for that. And we just are so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
For both of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. They do like all these excursions, and here, this is the butternut squash from my garden.
Wow, look at that.
So everything in here is. So the reason I love these two dishes is everything in here grows in Texas. So you have kale from my garden, figs from my garden, sage from my garden. Now I don't grow pomegranates, but pomegranates grow in Texas, so they're in here. Figs, pomegranate, sage, butternut squash from my garden.
Wow.
I grow, these are store-bought Brussels sprouts because mine are not produced yet, but Brussels sprouts from my garden. And then pumpkin seeds, and I will say these are also store-bought, but we carved our pumpkins that grew in my garden and we ate the pumpkin seeds from our pumpkins last weekend. So I didn't have any more pumpkin seeds because we ate them all. But everything in this salad
Amazing.
is from Texas, to the point where I made a vinaigrette with shallots and garlic that grow in Texas, Texas olive oil, and mustard. I mean, this is like a Dijon mustard, but mustard seeds, mustard grows here, and you could, I mean, if you really want to get nerdy, you could make mustard that comes from Texas, right?
Wow.
So this is
cool.
like the best salad to showcase just what you could do in the fall and winter here. Butternut squash and pumpkins are actually summer crops. People think of pumpkins and they think like, ooh, I'm gonna grow that. You actually put it in the summer and it takes that long, but they're considered like this, you know, the science family they're in. They're called winter squash because they store all winter. So spaghetti squash, butternut squash, pumpkins, they all grow in the summer, but you could store them. So like, this is the last of my butternut squash. This grew all summer. I picked it in like June, and they store all winter round, right?
So do you have to do anything special to store them, or?
No, it just sits on the counter. If you did not come, what I probably would have done, or in years prior, I've just been using them a lot this year, but what I normally do is roast them and then put them in a Ziploc bag in the freezer for like smoothies and soups and dishes throughout the winter.
Wow.
And then this one, I mean, the pasta is not, the pasta's pasta.
You didn't grow the wheat.
I didn't grow the wheat.
Roll.
Yeah, but it is from Italy. And then I'm gonna put chicken in here too. But these are all, what I love about this, it's like a pasta chicken salad dish. But it's all, so arugula, and then it's all herbs. It's cilantro and parsley, mint and basil, arugula. And I don't know if you girls can smell it, but like, it's just such a beautiful, like the smell and the taste of all the different fresh herbs. And all of this was picked this morning. And so it's just kind of a showcase of like, the squash was not picked this morning. Everything else, and you know, I gave you full disclosure of what was store-bought, but you could pick it, the pomegranate from the tree. You know, the figs were picked this morning, et cetera, et cetera. So now, next step, I have to get some goats and make goat cheese.
Yeah.